All right, folks, what's going on? Yeah, new look, new edition, more changes to come for Boxing Chit. Welcome, welcome. We appreciate you all being here. Josh, along with Boz, of course. We're holding it down here on a football Sunday afternoon. I guess you can say the games are in full swing. With that being said, we're here in the mix. What's going on with your Boz? How you feeling?
Oh, you know what? Today it's just like a dead day. I mean, the weather isn't that great, but yeah, I had a lot of sleep, so I'm ready to to engage.
No, I
Yeah.
feel you there for sure. I definitely feel you. So we are here for another edition of Boxing Chit. You might notice the new look, and also I guess we're talking about on the back end. Can get it off up front here, there, Boz. Yeah, we're gonna switch the time to 11 a.m. Eastern, and it's going to be 5 p.m. I guess Norwegian time. I don't know if you call it that or
Yeah.
what,
Well,
but something
it's
to
like
that tune right there.
continental European time, you might call it.
All right, all right. So be on the lookout for that new format moving forward. Just we have know a
Yeah.
lot goes on at this particular time. We're looking to reshape some things and update the format. A super slight deal. So thank you all for being here. Real quick shout out to those in the chat: Rodolfo Rivera Jr. and of course Skywalker Boxing in the mix here. Be sure to go follow them, give them a subscription, and like some videos there on that end. We'll jump straight into it, Boz. Of course, we know the big fight of the night was none other than Canelo Alvarez Saul making his return to the ring on a typical date and time frame, Mexican Independence Day weekend. And this was in Las Vegas in one of those Mexican Puerto Rican rivalries with Edgar Berlanga, who was a guy who started out on somewhat of a hot streak with 16 straight knockouts to start his career in the first round, that is, but then ran into a little bit of a bumpy road there here over the latter part. But he got a stoppage in his last fight out, and this was no doubt going to be the biggest test of his career. Canelo coming in with, I believe, three belts at 168 pounds, with one of them having been stripped. That being said, of course, the most recent undisputed champion at 168 pounds. And I think there were mixed reviews coming into this contest as to how good it would be. And we got, I guess, what many boxing fans might have expected there, Boz. I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, yeah, it was some fight. I mean, I mean, most people, I think, or many, did expect Canelo to knock out Berlanga, because of he really didn't fight anybody yet, or hadn't fought anybody, and until now, now he has, of course, but he struggled for like 5 fights in a row, couldn't score a knockout. But yeah, I mean, I was quite, well, not impressed, but he did well, I thought. I mean, according to expectations, maybe even a little better, because he, especially in the second half, he got dropped. In the third, that was a nice left hook, but he wasn't really, he didn't look so hurt. He got up right away, and it was more like, I just, like I ran into a left hook. That's all, like that type of knockdown, not a very, like, very hurtful knockdown, I thought. But it was a good knockdown still. I mean, credit to Canelo. And Canelo pretty much dominated, I thought, first 7 rounds or something. And then Berlanga started coming on. It's still Canelo kind of did remain dominant, but he also, he was hit a few times, and
Yeah.
yeah, just pretty good fight. I mean, nothing special, but a solid fight. And it went pretty much as I expected. I expected Canelo either to stop him late or to win on points. So, but Berlanga definitely didn't look bad, didn't embarrass himself, and probably performed even better than many expected. So, yeah, he, he,
Yeah.
he, it was a learning, of course, experience for him. So we'll see, but it looks pretty good so far for him.
Yeah, most certainly a learning experience. I thought it was a fairly dominant win by Canelo, but as you mentioned, Berlanga did have a few moments in spurts in some rounds. I really
Yeah,
didn't find a truly legitimate round that I could say that was most certainly Berlanga's round, but he did win some rounds on the scorecards. The scores came in at 117, 110, and 118, 109 twice. And I guess
yeah,
that's fair for the most part. Some
yeah,
rounds probably were a bit generous, but closer
maybe.
as far as how the placement ended. But that being said, Berlanga, I thought was mainly in survival mode at some points in terms of, okay, he was on this stage and he was just going to maintain and make sure that he was there. He was going to be there at the end. And
Mm,
he did take, as mentioned, a risk here or there, but he was largely fighting off the back foot for the entirety of the contest. And of
yeah.
course, we know him to be the puncher. Now,
Mm,
we can say that we haven't really seen much of him on the boxing front from a technical standpoint in terms of being the type of guy that would break down a fighter, especially someone to the caliber of Canelo Alvarez. That
mm,
being said, I wanted to see a bit more from him offensively. I wanted him to press the action a bit more and not be on the back foot as much. But that all depends on what's coming back to you and what's standing in front of you. And we know that Canelo is not an easy guy to just push around in that ring. And we really haven't seen that a ton
mm.
when just dealing with Canelo Alvarez in general. You know, he might have had some time struggling with those that were more of the boxers, but as far as those guys with the bravado, the big punchers, all that stuff, yeah, he really hasn't struggled much with those guys from an overall
No,
standpoint.
no, and that's why that argument like, oh, he's a bigger guy, punches really hard. That doesn't really matter really when it comes to
Yeah.
Canelo. He knows how to fight those guys really well. So yeah, that plays no very little difference. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But I do think that this was a learning experience for Berlanga, as you mentioned, because he should walk away from this contest with a brevy of knowledge and just
mm,
experience gained in so many facets, how to compete at that world championship
yeah,
elite level stage. And we'll see how he takes that and how it shapes him as a fighter. And if he still
yeah,
comes out with that intent and hunger, because this, of course, was his biggest fight ever. And at this stage, and given the magnitude of who Canelo is, it could end up being a situation where it is his biggest fight ever, period. So it's gonna
yeah.
depend on how he looks coming out of there, out of this contest.
Yeah, I mean, I can well see him fight the guy that fought also on the undercard, maybe Caleb Plant or
Oh yeah.
somebody like that, And you also have now another young prospect, Diego Pacheco. That would be a good
Mhm.
fight. So yeah, but I hope Berlanga will learn and has learned something from this. Of course, his first loss, but it wasn't like as I said, he really embarrassed himself. He was just dominated by a better and much more experienced fighter. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like the prospect of the Caleb Plant matchup. They do seem to have a
Mm.
little bit of back and forth bad blood there. As a matter of fact, Caleb Plant selling merch on EdgarBerlanga.com, as I understand it, selling his own merch. I saw something about that because
Oh
it was just
no.
sitting out there. I would have thought that Berlanga would have been on that, but that being said,
Yeah.
yeah, that's an interesting one. I'd like to see if he were to take that fight, Berlanga, that is, in his team. And I would say I
Mm.
don't see why not. As we saw, as a matter of fact, it was on this, and it was prior to the co-main event. Caleb Plant did fight a guy by the name of McCumbee, and McCumbee
Yeah.
actually gave Caleb Plant some pretty good work, dropped him in the contest as
Yeah.
well. It was very confident in there. So maybe that shows that
Mm.
maybe that aids in some of those tough fights with the likes of Canelo and David Benavidez are
Uh,
catching up with Caleb a
maybe.
little bit. And could
Yeah.
Berlanga be the type of guy who's younger and fresher at this stage, maybe upset the apple cart there? Because prior to this, I would have thought that Caleb Plant would be the favorite in that contest. And, I could technically still lean that way a little bit, but very interesting, I would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, even though that knockdown was also a little planned, getting unlucky, he was hit on the shoulder, and that made him lose the balance. And
Hmm.
but what's his name, McCamby? He did put up a fight definitely, but in the end, he was outgunned by Plant, and a pretty good performance by Caleb also. So hopefully that will, land him another big fight soon. Yeah, Mungia would be a great fight also. Of course,
Oh, yeah.
two swingers, two guys who go out to knock out everybody. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, yeah, that's a very interesting one as well, right there. Skywalker Boxer mentioned Jaime Munguia, who does fight this coming weekend. I believe it's in
Yeah.
Arizona. Going to be making a return against a fighter who I think is Romanian or something of that nature, and should be a tough fight for an undefeated
Oh,
fighter.
no,
It,
he's Brazilian. He's Armenian, but he's like based in
Brazilian.
Canada. Yeah,
Okay, Armenian, Canadian
yeah,
Armenian, then Brazilian. So tough fight for Munguia there, at least on paper,
yeah.
and what we've
I believe
seen.
he's unbeaten. I think
Yeah,
Brazilian still like
unbeaten in at least 30 plus fights.
32. Yeah, something like that. 32 and all or something.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that should
and
be an interesting one right there for sure. And that's a
yeah,
potential opponent for, or at least the winner, I guess you could say, is a potential opponent for uh, Edgar Berlanga. So we'll see if
yeah.
that is
He's got
ultimately the case.
32-0-1, 23 knockouts. So yeah, he's got some knockouts as well.
All right.
This
So, yeah,
guy. So
Brazilian.
yeah, potentially dangerous fighter for Mugia. Yeah, this will show really how much he's got in him.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and this is Munguia rebounding from the fight with Canelo Alvarez, which of course was a big fight for him as well, and sort of that pinnacle fight
Mm,
in a similar situation to Berlanga there. So it'll be interesting to see how Berlanga bounces back, but that is one that I think would be pretty solid from an action perspective as well in terms of
mm,
Munguia versus Berlanga. Interesting that Munguia is now top ranked where Berlanga started, and Berlanga is now matchroom. And it probably would have been a little bit easier to make had the timing been just a slight bit different. With that being said, we can probably still get it. Rodolfo Rivera says Berlanga got options. Flander Munguia, the fight made him a better fighter and a bigger name. Certainly, I would say it
mm.
does that. He's going to be a name that is out there. The stars came out; they were showing support. But of course, we had that big UFC card that was going on at the same time. That seemed to get a great deal of people out as well. It was a pretty spectacular looking show for sure. But Berlanga, yeah, he puts his name out there, and so the question now becomes, what's next for Canelo Alvarez? And a name that was thrown out there beforehand, of course, is Dimitri Bivol. So that could be a fight that is there on the table, which I would think
Interesting.
may require Canelo going up, depending on how negotiations go. Or I guess he could get Bivol down to
Yeah,
168, as he's mentioned that he can make that weight. But what do you think of that in
probably.
terms of Canelo fighting Bivol again?
Well, if we all had to go down to 168, of course, that you might say would be an advantage for Canelo because we all hasn't fought, I think, as a pro anyway at that weight yet. So, but I can see him making it because he's not a big light heavyweight, So, yeah, not too like muscular or anything, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bivol is still very, very slick and smart fighter and fast and all that. So he will always be very, very hard to beat for Canelo and anybody else for that matter. But
Yeah.
yeah, that might be an interesting fight. I think probably this time around it might even be a little closer than the first one was.
Yeah, 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 it's certainly an interesting one there. Of course, the fight I prefer, and I think many fight fans prefers Canelo versus David Benavidez. I don't know if that's any closer to happening,
Yeah,
and we do still have to see what happens with Bivol versus Beterbiev. Though, for my money, I'm leaning on the side of Dimitri Bivol to pull off that victory.
yeah, of course, yeah. I believe I agree. I agree.
That makes it interesting. That's what I would say.
Mhm.
It makes it very interesting. But yeah, shout out. Yeah, Skywalker will be down there for the Hami Munguia fight. Good stuff. People tune in and check that out right there, or check out his channel for some coverage of that aspect. It's going down in Arizona, I guess, here this weekend coming up. So that's one worthwhile and to check out. So
Yeah,
very interesting. Very
that's.
interesting weekend.
I can only say I do think Mugia will win that fight, but you never know, it's if it's in where is it? Oh, it's in Glendale. Well, that's all right. If it's not in Canada, then then
Oh
no
yeah.
no problem with the judges or anything like hometown judging. That can happen, especially if the fight is close and it's
Oh yeah,
if
yeah, no
Mugia,
doubt about it. No doubt
yeah,
about it. So that's something to certainly take in mind. So that fight,
yeah,
hey, it's going to be an interesting one to watch right there. So we'll see how it goes there, folks. I wanted to mention also on this card, the co-main event saw what was a very lukewarm type of co-main event you want to have on a pay-per-view of this nature, with Arizlan Lara taking on Danny Garcia with a 160-pound title on the line. It may have been a defense, as a matter of fact, for Lara. I think he came in with the title, and
yeah, he did.
this was Danny Garcia's first fight at 160 pounds, and his first fight since his first fight at 154
Mm.
pounds, which came over a year ago at this point. And prior to
And
that, he
maybe
had
his
been out for
last.
a good period. Yep,
Yeah,
and as you mentioned, there may have been his last because he was stopped in this contest and basically was
yeah,
forced to a knee, and this went down in the ninth round, and
yeah,
he just did not look good at all whatsoever.
yeah. He
And the
was.
funny thing is, I was chatting with Rodolfo, mentioning that, hey, watch out for Danny Garcia because that age is about to catch up with Arizona Lara.
Yeah.
But I was so
Well, oh
wrong.
yeah, right.
It's pretty
No,
crazy.
Lara, he's just, he seems to be like Bernard Hopkins, like a guy who
Yeah,
only gets even better with age, maybe you would say,
right.
you know.
He's still around here. He still has a title. But
Yeah,
yeah, I know it wasn't much to really digest in terms of the fight because it was pretty much all Arizlan Lara. And as you
mm,
mentioned, maybe this is Danny Garcia's last fight. I mean, at this stage,
yeah.
what more does he have to offer? And
At, at
besides getting
160,
hurt,
yeah, especially at 160. I don't know if he can make 154 anymore, but I don't think he's a real, like, legit middleweight either. He's too small for that. And I don't know why he fights. I guess because of the long absence, he couldn't make 154 or whatever. Maybe this was for about the title. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, he thought probably Lara is 41. So maybe I got a chance to like run him down, walk him down, whatever. And
yeah,
but yeah, this he tried, but he wasn't really doing it. He didn't look good in that fight, as you said. And then in the ninth, he got hit with that left hook, and he went down. And his father, thank goodness he was very sensible, and he saw
yeah.
that's it, that's enough. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
props in that regard because yeah, that was pretty much the right time
yeah,
to step in there for sure because there was nothing more that Garcia was going to offer. And I think it was
definitely,
pretty clear and obvious in that regard. So
yeah.
Laura picks up another title defense there, and
Mhm.
Laura has the WBA title, and it makes it interesting as far as what's next for him. The other title holders are Carlos Adames and Janabek did have titles. I don't know if he still has them or whatnot, but he couldn't make it in his last contest. Couldn't make the weight, that is. And that
Yeah,
being
right.
said, if he wasn't stripped or whatnot, then he has two titles, the IBF, WBO. But those are very interesting fights for Lara, certainly at this stage, in terms of going up against those younger, actually, or seemingly bigger guys, or who certainly will have a bit more juice on them in terms of their age and overall youth. And we'll
Mm.
see how Laura handles that if there is a title unification. Of course, if not, then there are some other guys that are out there in and around that weight. We always hear Chris Eubank's name thrown out there. And maybe he's a guy who can somehow be worked into a fight with Erislandy Lara, since Lara is still with PBC. You know, I guess it's a wait and see right now. But as far as 160 is concerned, at this particular moment, not a division with a lot of huge names right now, and of course huge names in their prime right now. And
Liam Smith also is there, but I heard that he had to withdraw from the fight that he was going to have. I don't know exactly.
Oh yeah, soon. He's still there. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, Josh Kelly, that was his opponent. So yeah, he was pulled out. I don't remember what it was. Maybe an injury or something.
Josh Kelly. So that's very interesting right there, because I know Josh Kelly is a guy who was highly touted and still fairly young, so he could make a wave back here. So if he's operating at 160, then a name that could bounce up there depending on how things go. But yeah, so 160 is pretty much an interesting weight division right now. We'll see who ends up coming out on top, if anyone, or maybe it's just in that period where we're just going to see some fights from separate belt holders here or there, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty open, you know. I mean, nobody has. Yeah, I mean, even though Schannebeck was for a while, he looked like he would be the king, but now, you know, as you said, he got stripped, and who knows if he will maybe be moving up, you know, even who knows. So yeah, he's a pretty big guy for a middleweight. I mean, yeah, he is.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, he is. So yeah, it makes it interesting just thinking about the prospect moving forward. So that's what's going on at that weight class. And then another fight we wanted to mention that was on there was Rolando Romero making his return to the ring there, and he took on Manuel Jaimes. I believe his name is Jaimes, and this is a guy who isn't well known as far as that.
What happened? No. He threw himself out. Right.
The background change there. Yeah, wrong button. But that all
right.
But
interesting.
Yeah, I know it's in country.
Yeah, what we're saying.
I know it's crazy that it goes that route in terms of when I accidentally leave out of there. Give me 1 second here.
Hey, rascal!
All right, we're in the mix here.
Nice. Back in the saddle.
Switched up a little bit. Hold on, I'm gonna go back to the main version that I actually had there. How do I get this thing to change? I'm still kind of working this one.
This one looks good too, but it's your call.
Where's Boxing Chit again? See how that how that came about. Bear with me here 1 second. Why is it not changing the way that I thought it would? Okay, here we go. All right, we're good. We're back to it. Back to it, folks.
Very nice, yeah.
All right, apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, as I was mentioning, we're talking about Romero versus Jaimes, and Romero didn't look good. His opponent didn't look too great himself. Not a lot of action in that contest, especially considering that Romero is touted as this knockout artist. And he squeaked by, well, from a viewership perspective, squeaked by with a victory, but it was a wide victory on the scorecards, which certainly is questionable to a degree there. But not a very memorable fight there, Boz. I don't know if you caught it. If you didn't, then I don't blame you.
I did only watch some highlights, really brief, but it seemed like there wasn't much to see, really.
I was going to say there are actually highlights.
Yeah. Well, it was like a resume of a fight, let's call it.
Yeah, very interesting. I don't know. This is 140 pounds, of course. That's where Rolly was operating, and I don't know what's next for him. He did lose his title that he had to Isaac Cruz here in his last contest. Didn't look good in this one. And he didn't look good in the Cruz contest. Even prior to that, I believe it was Barroso. He really didn't look good in that contest either. So we'll see what's next for him. He probably needs to be in with a specific type of opponent for him to actually look good. And who that is at this stage, hey, I guess time will tell. But don't know. Don't know at all. But yeah, as also moving on, another one that was on here was a part of the televised, the main event of the non-televised prelims, as mentioned here by Skywalker. But Stephen Fulton, he made his return to the ring, moving up from 122 pounds, the former champion there at 122 pounds. He moved up to 126. So this was his first fight at 126. And he was actually taking on an opponent, last name Castro. And Castro's a veteran of 126 for the most part, or at least he had more fights there. And it's Carlos Castro, as a matter of fact. And this turned out to be a very interesting contest right here. And Stephen Fulton, he was dropped in the contest. And not only that, he was hurt on other occasions as well. And at times, practically holding on for dear life. But he was able to put in some work and ended up winning via split decision on the scorecards there. Boz, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, at least from what you may have saw. But it was certainly, maybe that step up to 126 could be more of a rude awakening for Fulton.
I actually did catch some of that fight live, last night, the last 5 rounds, but I missed the knockdown round just before that.
Okay.
So it looked like Fulton struggled there, and in the 8th round he got also hurt, clipped there, and but he did kind of bounce back and kind of win the rest of those rounds, the last 2 rounds anyway. But obviously it wasn't an easy fight for him, and when it's a split decision, enough said. He didn't win, he didn't impress, he didn't win beyond all doubt, obviously. So I don't know. Obviously this is his first fight since, and it's been over a year since a fight also. So. There's always, and also first at featherweight, so there's always gonna be a tough fight, definitely. So
certainly. Shout out to Rasclot 222. Appreciate you dropping by. Be sure to check him out, folks. He goes live as well over on his channel. I think you'd enjoy it. Talks about some history as well, which is always a good thing. But another thing is I thought that Castro looked physically bigger there at 126 than Fulton.
He's a featherweight. Like he has been a featherweight before. I mean, for a long time probably.
Like legitly. So Rathcliffe did mention that Fulton looked physically better. Yeah, he did. You could see that he probably packed on a little bit more muscle or whatnot, but he looked smaller than Castro most certainly. And I wonder how he'll look with some other featherweights there now that he's moved up to that division. That being said, Brendan Figueroa, who he had faced and beat at 122 pounds, beat Castro at 126 pounds. So it looked like there for a second Castro was going to beat Fulton here at this new weight, but Fulton was able to get by with that victory. Now, of course, the crowd didn't seem to be on his side as far as who won. And that being said, you had to really watch it. I don't think it's he's a Philly fighter, of course, so it wasn't a pro-Philly crowd, I would say. It was in Vegas on Mexican Independence Weekend. So I would say that, there might have been some bias there. But that being said, very close fight for him when you factor in the knockdown and then, of course, that 8th round. But I guess he did enough to put in work. And, two judges saw it his way. 2 of the judges, even if it was a little bit,
Yeah, that's common. Yeah, I mean, I like Castro. He does look like he can hit, but he's hardly a devastating puncher like So probably that's why Fulton did make the distance.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, as you mentioned there, Skywalker, yeah, that is a thing. And I felt like Fulton, man, when he got dropped, the round that he got dropped, I thought he was about to get stopped. So I give it to him. He held on, did what he needed to do, and it required a lot of holding, of course, and even some backing up and staying out of the way. But he did what he needed to do to survive that round, because it was probably very close to being stopped if he would have taken a bit more damage there. If Castro would have been able to pin him in a corner and tee off on him, but he was able to slip up out of there. So very interesting place there for Fulton. We'll see where he goes from here, as well as Castro. I'd imagine we'd see Castro as well, because it wasn't too bad of a showing there for Castro, and did 126. Right now, you got Angelo Leo, who has a title. You have Ray Vargas still out there. Nick Ball. Nick Ball is actually going to be fighting Ronnie Rios, who is back in the mix as well. But then you still have some other names out there as well, with the likes of Raymond Ford, Rafael Espinoza, who has a belt, is going to be fighting a rematch with Robeisy Ramirez, and Luis Alberto Lopez still out there. So Lee Wood, if I didn't mention him. So very active division there. So a lot of competition. So we'll see how Fulton shapes up, or who he's in the mix with here, depending on when we next see him. So should be interesting. I mean,
the problem is that he's never been a puncher even at 122. So at 126, it's going to be hard when he has to go distance all the time in those major fights. So, it's pretty dangerous or risky division for him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Most certainly. And then lastly, as far as this pay-per-view card, Roman Salas Rodriguez was able to knock out Ramon Villa in 3 rounds in what was a fight that was shaping up to be pretty exciting. And Villa looked like he might have been heading towards potentially stopping Salas there in the early part, as he was really pressing him and landing some big shots, pretty much all offense. But Salas was able to bounce back, caught him with a shot he didn't see. It was the straight right that was very short, right on the button. Villa went down, and he didn't get back up, basically.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, I was I thought that Villa would win definitely by knockout, but so that was a surprise to me. And I like him as a fighter, so it was kind of disappointing to see that he got knocked out. But what can you do? It's boxing, and when you have 2 guys going at it like that, both can hit, both can punch. Obviously, this guy Salas Rodriguez, he can punch as well. So yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, and hey, that's a good way to open things up, I would say, for sure. So that was an exciting one to start things out, and ultimately, that was one of the 3 knockouts that we got on the actual card. That was a legit one where he was counted out, but then Caleb Plant, who we touched on slightly, but we'll go back to here real quick. Caleb Plant, he got a TKO 9 over McCumbee, who was a guy who was fairly, I guess you could say, unknown. Trevor McCumbee, that is, but came in with a lot of bravado, and he showed it in the fight as well. Had a lot of moxie. He was confident, and he eventually gasped before he was ultimately stopped, but not without giving Caleb Plant a pretty tough fight there, Boz. What were your thoughts on that? What you saw from McCumbee, this fairly obscure guy who had success?
Yeah. I mean, he was undefeated, like 28-0. So he was hardly in a bum or anything. But yeah, I mean, he came to fight definitely, and till the end he was swinging and trying to stay in the fight. Of course, he scored that knockdown, as we said previously, But in the end, he was just bested by a better fighter, and I liked what I saw also from Plant. He was very aggressive in the end, and obviously was very intent to finish off the guy.
He took over in that second half and even started doing some showboating himself.
Yeah, and he got I believe McCamby got cut also. So you
Mhm.
know, it was a good stoppage. Simply, he started to really take some
Yep.
pondering there. So a good comeback victory for Plant, and McCamby. He made a good impression, I think, or made a good performance for yeah, and just I think he will be getting more fights that are
Oh
kind of
yeah.
big maybe in
Yeah, yeah.
future.
I was thinking I was thinking a similar thing there, Boz. He was somewhat of a big winner in losing, because he had a
Yeah,
pretty solid showing overall and was
yeah,
pretty entertaining as well, the way he chose to operate. And yeah, I think some people will want to see him back in there again. He has a look to him, big guy. So yeah, we'll see. 168 pounds. So I'd watch him again for sure.
definitely.
I'd
Why
imagine
not?
him and Hami Mungia, for instance, that would be pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Here's to Who in the mix here. Hello there to you, Who. Thanks for dropping by. Boxing Chit podcast. We're dropping in for quick chat on the action from the past weekend. So that was a big pay-per-view, and all of the cards tied to that as far as boxing is concerned there for the week. I also, Boz, caught on replay the zone fight that happened. It was in New Zealand, so it was very early, but Naika, who is this big
Oh yeah,
cruiserweight out of New Zealand,
yeah.
his name is David Naika. He was undefeated, 8-0, took on Tommy Karpinski, veteran Tommy Karpinski, and he was able
Jamie.
to pick up a stoppage. Did you catch that?
No, but I did see that fight. I mean, in the like that it was going to happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
this guy is a huge cruiserweight, 6'6". Oh
Wow.
man,
Yeah,
yeah.
you are correct too. And I saw him, and I remember you had mentioned him before, and I had saw the name floating around there. I don't think I had
Mm,
actually seen him fight, and seeing him, yeah, he's a huge 100 or 200 pounder there. I don't know what he weighed on
yeah.
that night, but you can see that he's be the type to carry
Yeah,
225,
he's
230 pretty well, man. He's a big solid guy, and it looked that
yeah,
way when he was in there with Tommy Karpinski,
and
who was game.
yeah, Tommy, yeah, and he's not that young. I mean, if he had been 23, maybe it would be natural because at that age you haven't yet your body hasn't fully developed, and
Yeah.
but he's 29, so it is kind of strange that he can make that weight at 6'6".
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It makes it even crazier when you think about the likes of Sebastian Fedora, who's 6'6", 154.
yeah.
It looks so crazy. These two guys are around the same height for the
But
most part.
he's a freak of nature.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, Naika, he was laying into Tommy Karpinski, who was very game, I would say. But of course, Karpinski,
Oh yeah,
not he's more a C plus level fighter, I guess you could say.
yeah. He's
Might be a B on his best days, but a general, I guess, test there in the early part. But Naika, he was tying into that body, had the right side of Karpinski's body very red, and that's what ultimately did him in as well, a body shot.
he's a former light heavyweight, so Carpenter spent most of his career there, and he's 38, so he
Yeah,
was
and he has a
there to
win
lose.
over Chad Dawson, though it wasn't the best version of Chad Dawson, but he does have a
Oh
win over
yeah,
Chad Dawson.
that's at the end of Chad's career, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, just for sure, for
Mm.
sure. Yeah, it is. It was a very interesting one there, but I want to see more of Naika and with cruiserweights, sort of like heavyweight. Sometimes all it takes is a punch as well, and he's a big dude. So I
Yeah,
wouldn't mind seeing him in there with the likes of a Jay Opataya.
yeah,
Maybe that's in store, considering both are New Zealanders, Kiwis. There, maybe that's ultimately something, or I don't know. They could be friends and great buddies for all I know. So maybe not. But anyway, I'll be looking for him.
yeah. Well, why not? Why not?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Rasclot says David Naika needs a lot of work. He was taking some big shots in that fight. Certainly, certainly. And he was a bit robotic. I will say he's a bit robotic. You can see he's not fully polished. So his straight punches are all right, and he was able to loop in that left hook to the body, but he isn't very fluid in there. So I agree with you there, Rasclot. He's not as busy as Fandora. Nope, but yeah, it is two different weight class. Certainly. Certainly. So he'll be an interesting one to watch, folks. If you haven't seen him, certainly worth checking out. NYIKA, David Naika. So someone to check out. Then I also wanted to note, I did watch a card on Friday, Boz. You might not have caught it, but Rocky Hernandez took on Thomas Matisse in Mexico City in a contest that was stopped at the end. I believe it was the 6th round. Yep, at the end of the 6th round, due to a headbutt, and they went to the scorecards, and Matisse was down. This was just as Matisse was starting to come on, and it turned out on replays that the punch that opened up the cut for which it was stopped was not a headbutt. It was actually a right hand that did the job in. But Matisse was just starting to come on, veteran coming in there, but he was in Rocky Hernandez's territory, his hometown. This was in Mexico, and he might have been the only American on the entire card, and he was there in the main event. So I just wanted to mention that Thomas Matisse, he had been on Showbox The New Generation a number of times, so that's where I at least became familiar with him when he was coming up. But he questionable situation there in terms of that fight stoppage and the time in which it was stopped. And yeah, but you got to have that in mind when you're going down to different spots, and you're certainly not on the A side of things, as they say there, Boz. Real quick, as we start to wind this thing down here, Boz, got about 10 minutes. They want to mention, of course, this is our first one here in a good while. Jose Zepeda, I was able to catch him, Jose Chon Zepeda, get a second round stoppage over Ivan Redkach. I thought it might be the first round because Redkach, I feel, pretty much a absolutely done fighter. And I don't know if that tells us much about Zepeda.
He never really was like really good.
In all actuality. So I was surprised that he was in another main event, but this doesn't tell us much about Zepeda as far as what to expect here as he continues forward with his career here on the back end as well, you can say. But he's a name that I'm sure that some of the fighters around 140 coming up will still have on the radar if they're looking to get a former world champion that they can throw on the resume for sure.
Right. I mean, he should probably stay away from the very best fighters. Like at this point in his career, he's he can definitely beat these weaker ones, and but to face somebody that's elite level, that wouldn't end well for him, I think. Now,
and I agree with you there. And then I know we had talked about it. So this happened since the last episode too. Was Naoya Inoue, TJ Doheny, and I think we both were pretty much on the same page coming into it that it was going to be a Inoue win. I think the majority of people, Doheny, certainly his best days are behind him as well. And he got the 7th round stoppage. I haven't seen that fight in its entirety. I saw the stoppage where Inoue punched Doheny in the body and seemingly broke his back. So Doheny needs to retire. That's the way I felt about it. Punched him in the body and broke his back. You're just like, oh my goodness. But anyway, that was kind of expected in terms of Inoue getting that victory there. And another one I wanted to mention is one we were going to discuss. I don't know if you were able to check it out by now, but I think you were. I think you mentioned Pacheco versus Suletsky, that fight that actually took place there, Boz. And Pacheco, a name thrown out there, of course, who was at 168 pounds, making noise as well. Hey, he could be very interesting because he's tall. He can box a good bit and seems to have enough pop to get the job done when the pressure's on there. So What do you think of
Yeah,
that? It's the first man to stop Zaleski, who's been in with some pretty decent names.
yeah, of course, very impressive. I didn't really expect him to stop Zelensky because he is a tough guy and a good boxer and all that. He never was, as you said, stopped before. He fought Dimitrius Andrade and Danny Garcia. Sorry, not Garcia, Danny Jacobs, I believe. So yeah, he gave them good fights. I mean, definitely. So
Yeah,
this was so impressive by even though actually Seletsky hadn't fought a really good opponent for a while, but still,
yeah,
to stop him, it was really impressive by Pacheco, definitely. And I, really will be following that young man's career with anticipation now, definitely. Yeah.
yeah. Likewise here, likewise. So, yeah, Pacheco, got to watch there. Hey, good naming info right there. As Rasclap mentioned there, Rodolfo Jose Cepedo called Chon because Mexican people who are called Encarnacion are nicknamed Chon. Oh, interesting. Good little factoid. And then Rodolfo, they're typically called Fito. All right, that's what I'm going to call you, Fito or Rudolph.
Right.
I was saying
I
Rudolph
heard
a
of
few
that.
times.
Yeah, I
Everyone knows
heard
Rudolph
of
the
that
Red-Nosed
nickname.
Reindeer. But that's good to know. Fito. Fito and
Mm,
Chon. I was wondering where that Chon was coming from, which I like. I like that as a nickname. Jose Chon Zapata right there.
Sean. Right, Sean.
Chon.
Yeah, it's
So yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting stuff right there. Real quick, before we step out of here, and of course, we're going to be going to that new format as I mentioned up top, and we're going to be coming at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Norwegian Time. We're going to look ahead for the weekend here really quick. We got a few big fights coming up. Of course, on Friday, Ame Munguia versus Bazinian, the Armenian Canadian fighter, coming in undefeated. And Jaime Munguia only one loss to Canelo Alvarez. We're very much familiarized with Jaime Munguia comparison. So the new commodity for most will be Bazinian there, Boz. We kind of spoke about this. Should be a pretty interesting fight from an overall standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Brazilian has some solid names on his record, and 32-0-1, as I said, and yeah, he's got a few knockouts, 23. So yeah, I can see it being a good competitive fight, but of course, I do, expect Munguia to win it, and yeah, I hope he will be at his best shape. So
Oh
if
yeah,
not, then who knows what can
yeah,
happen.
yeah. Well, you never know, but yeah, that should be an interesting thing there, folks. So be sure, we'll definitely try and check that out, and something we're going to talk about on the co-main event. You have Andres Cortez going to be taking on an undefeated Filipino fighter, both of them undefeated. Cortez 22-0, and Suarez, the Filipino fighter Charlie Suarez. I haven't seen him. He is coming in undefeated. You never know what you're going to get, and it should be an interesting contest. For Cortez, he may have squeaked by, but for many in his last contest where he didn't look as good, he ended up getting a decision. Might have been a split decision in his last contest, but he did not look as good as he previously looked as he's been coming up there. But hey, that could be just one fight here, and as mentioned, you never know what you're going to get. So we'll see how that fight ultimately shapes up there as the co-main for that contest. So this is going
And
down in Arizona, Glendale.
and also one major fight is happening next Saturday in London, as well
Yes.
as you know.
Oh yeah. Saturday,
Yeah.
September 1st, Anthony Joshua taking on Daniel Dubois right here. We're talking
Mm.
about two big-time heavyweights going out there. They're going to put it on the line in what should be a very, very interesting, good contest that I'm thinking, Boz, doesn't go the distance. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, might well happen that it doesn't go. Of course, I mean, there's a big chance both guys are bangers, and of course, most people favor Joshua, and as they should. But still, one should not look past Daniel Dubois.
Yeah.
He definitely is coming off a really good well, a 2-fight winning streak, but what two opponents, like Jarrell Miller and Philip Hrgovic. So
Oh
those are
yeah.
no jokes. So I mean, it seems like he's really built up a confidence since the loss to Usyk, and many point out that he also actually looked better against Usyk than AJ did in both
Yeah.
fights, and actually came close to knocking him out.
Some feel he
or
did win.
yeah, some felt he did should have gotten that knockout. So he's also younger. He's in his prime. Joshua is now 34. Kind of,
Oh
or
yeah.
almost 35, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
almost
Good point.
approaching that time. When you start to stagnate. So in the last two fights, he fought Valin and an MMA fighter. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
people should not overhype him because of those two wins, because neither of those guys were a really top opponent. In
Yeah.
all ways.
That is true.
So
We like the mentality that Joshua had, and he will be 35 in October. So
yeah.
youth is
So
on Dubois' side.
I hope Joshua will not be overconfident and go in there thinking, hey, I'm going to knock this guy out in 3 rounds or something. So, but still, I think also Dubois, well, he didn't look too good against Hrgovic in the first 5 rounds or
Oh
something.
yeah.
He took a lot of shots, but he managed to take them well. So we'll see how he will take Joshua. That's the big thing. Big difference is that Joshua does hit harder than Hrgovic. Well, he has proven that now. Anyway. So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, true. Hey, a lot of people didn't think Dubois would be coming out of that Hrgovic contest on his feet, but hey, he managed it.
yeah, Hrgovic. Yeah, I mean Hrgovic just spent himself too early, as I said before. But anyway, Dubois did kind of hurt him before the stoppage. So yeah, it was a good win. So
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know really. I mean, of course, you gotta kind of slightly at least favor Joshua, but yeah, I mean, I think it would be maybe good for boxing if Dubois won, because Joshua has already accomplished quite a lot. So
Yeah, and it adds a
I
lot
don't
to a
know.
potential rematch between Dubois and Usyk too, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Of course, Dubois got a lot of flack for, as I said, quitting against Joe Joyce, but he was very injured. What was
And he
he
had a broken
supposed to
orbital
do?
wound, so
Yeah,
that's
I
nothing
didn't
to snuff
understand
at.
it. Like everybody, oh, he quit, such a quit. I'm like, hey, how would you react if you got a broken orbital bone and your
Yeah,
eye
and
was?
hey, he was able to fight again, and look where he's at. This is
Yeah,
an IBF World Heavyweight title fight because I guess it was
yeah.
stripped
I
from.
mean, just that he came out for 10 rounds. He could have quit after the night. I wouldn't have blamed him at all. He was already really bad shape. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, really, I mean, I don't understand some of these boxing fans today. So yeah, I mean, I think probably Joshua will, maybe even knock him out, but it will go at least 6 rounds. I think probably 7, maybe. But you never know. Dubois, I
Yeah.
always thought he was a capable fighter and very strong, of course. And yeah, now he seems to have improved also. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I will
Yeah,
say, yeah, he looks better because he used to come out early, only intent on getting a quick knockout. He seemed to
yeah,
kind of slow
just
down a bit.
swinging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we
I,
realized
I
that
give
hey,
him.
that's not going to work at all
Yeah,
levels.
yeah, I definitely give him a realistic chance to win that fight, even though he's not a real favorite, probably. But yeah, yeah, I think he's like 40% chance to win it anyway. Definitely.
Oh yeah, not bad at all. There, I'm with you there, Bob. But yeah, this is going to be a big card. It's going to be a DAZN pay-per-view going down at Wembley Stadium. I think I saw something expecting around 80,000 plus, maybe even more, that are going to be out there somewhere in that neighborhood, which is absolutely amazing. as far as a boxing contest right there, that shows you that Joshua still has that name value. Dubois bringing something to the table as well, but certainly, hey, anytime Joshua has a big fight in a stadium, people show up.
Yeah, his popularity is something like, akin to that of Lennox Lewis or Frank Bruno, in their days. So definitely, yeah.
So yeah, no doubt about it. Cheers there to you, Paul Bright. He says, "What's up there, fellas?" Simper pie to you, Paul, fellow Marine there. Yeah, we're wrapping things up. We were talking about the big pay-per-view coming up this weekend. Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois, IBF World Heavyweight title fight with a lot of implications right there. A lot of implications. And really quick there, Boz, I was looking at the undercard. Not too bad. You have Buatsi Hutchinson, which should be a pretty interesting contest. Denny Shiraz. I like Shiraz in that contest. That's a very interesting one.
He's fighting. Who is he fighting against? Some older, experienced fighter, I believe.
Who is that?
Shiraz. Who is he fighting?
Oh, yes. Denny. His last name is Denny. I forget it. I'm looking up his first name, but he fought recently as well. And he got a stoppage over someone. I remember seeing Tyler Denny is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, so I thought he was going to fight someone more famous, but maybe that fight.
Yeah, he's more domestic. Yeah, Tyler Denny, that is. So it's an interesting contest. I really like Shiraz, though. I think he's pretty good. Yeah. Then Joshua Buatsi versus Hutchinson, Willie Hutchinson. That should be pretty interesting right there.
Oh, yeah. I really like Willie Hutchinson, like against Craig Richards. He was really good, very dominant. He can box and punch. So,
Yep. He did look pretty good. So he should be an interesting test for Buatsi. He's looking to kind of keep his name out there in the mix at 175. And then Josh Warrington is taking on that guy, Anthony Kachache. How do you say his name? The Irish?
Kakache, I think Kakache.
Kakache. Yeah. I remember him. He fought someone in his last fight who was a bigger name. And I remember it was like, how's he going to
Cordina.
Cordina. So, interesting fight right there. Warrington, he's still out there.
What an upset. He had 7, 8 knockouts before that in 20-something fights. And then he stops Joe Cordina, who was
right. Yeah, I remember coming into that. Yeah.
Huge upset, yeah.
Because I knew it was the
biggest. Yeah. That was one of the biggest upsets of this year, definitely.
Yeah, I would say so as well right there, because I don't think too many people were expecting Cordina to get stopped for sure. Yeah, I remember watching that fight. He was taking some big shots, so I got to give it to this guy. So Warrington, we know, doesn't have the power. We'll see how he does, though, in terms of the intensity. If Josh Warrington can bring that back for one night.
A dog fight, definitely. Yeah.
So that's who he's going to be going up against. So very interesting one. And Paul Bright says he's thinking Dubois might get that upset. Certainly, Boz made a good point. Anthony Joshua's last two fights were, it was against the MMA guy in Ngannou, and then, of course, Otto Wallin. And that was probably a combined 6 or 7 rounds right there, right?
It was. And Wallin didn't look in good shape there at all. So
I did like his intensity, that mentality that he came in there with. But this is going to be our first time seeing him in there with that world stage. Yeah. So, but those are the big fights for the weekend coming up there. Certainly worthwhile. So we'll be on the lookout for those for sure. So big weekend, folks. There's going to be a card in Germany as well. But
that's what says there. That's exactly my point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Certainly there, Rasclot. Hey, Dubois has he showed that he can handle it. He can handle, despite what was thought of him initially. He can handle this thing for sure. So big props to him. But man, good stuff right here. We appreciate everyone dropping by. Real quick, I mentioned once again, as we were talking about in the lead up to it, Boz and I, we're gonna have this new looking format, of course, and we're going to be coming back to you at 11 a.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Norwegian time here moving forward. And this will give people time to dive into football, NFL season, all that stuff going on. But we'll be here in the mix, bringing you an hourly show here each Sunday. hopefully each Sunday, knock on wood. But it's been great to have everyone who dropped by stop in. It's been great. Appreciate you dropping by as well, Boz, as we did another edition of Boxing Chit.
Yeah.
More to come for sure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. As you said, has been a while since we last did. So yeah.
Yep. So thanks all, and we'll see you all here hopefully next Sunday.